Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final video lecture. It's going to be quite brief since I'm just kind of summarizing what we've done in the class. I really wish I could be doing this face to face. I much prefer in-person classes than video lectures. I also understand that this again has been a really tough semester, and so everybody should feel a sense of both, I guess, relief that the semester is coming to an end, but also, I don't know, a sense maybe of pride that, you've been able to get through it. Hopefully things will be better next year, and things will return to normal. But I don't, if you are not doing as well in your classes as you normally would have hoped, I also want people to realize that it's not a normal semester. And so to kind of be easy, easy on yourself, and and in a similar sense, I intend to be easier on people when it comes to kind of grading and giving final grades. On that point, I think the most important thing I want to say is make sure that you turn everything in, right? I can be understanding when you turn something in, and kind of be easier in grading, but if you don't turn it in at all, my hands are kind of tied and I have to just give you a 0 for that assignment. And so the most important thing I would say, in terms of passing the class and getting through it and getting credit, is make sure to turn everything in. So that's my kind of note on that. Okay, so let me do one more thing where I do the PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to do kind of a brief summary of the class. Okay. All right, so conclusion. So first, just let me kind of summarize, what we've done in the class, over the last 14 weeks or so. So, I roughly split up the class in terms of the 3 sections, right? So the first section before exam 1 was kind of the foundations of social science research. And so we looked at kind of some pretty big topics like causality, objectivity, theories, paradigms, kind of the basic kind of frameworks or kind of building blocks of research methods to kind of get us going. Then in the second part, looked at the kind of process of actually designing a research project. What does somebody do once they want to actually produce a piece of research? And it's actually, as we see, it's quite complicated. There's a fair number of steps to it, right? So we can see that you start off by selecting a topic, then you got to review the literature, finding a gap in that literature, what's missing. Then from that, you develop a question, right? You can't just go out and start observing things or just doing research. No, you gotta ask a question. You want to be finding something out, right? So research question is kind of almost the most key point to it all, right? Asking a good question. Then developing a rough theory as kind of an answer to that question, right? And then developing hypotheses to test that theory, right? So you can't just, you can't test the theory directly. You need to develop hypotheses, of some things to observe in the world to test it. And then kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, selecting research methods and your sample, then going out and making your observations. And then the very last step, writing it all up, right? Actually, writing an article, writing a book chapter, writing a book, presenting a paper at a conference, the end result. And this is the only thing that anybody ever sees, and they don't actually see all the hard work that went into producing this final thing. Right? But so what we can see is there's a lot of steps to it. It's quite difficult to produce even a single piece of research. Right? It's no small feat. So then in the last part of the class, we looked at these different methods that you go out and actually observe the social world, right? Observing people is tricky, right? I imagine it's tricky to observe things in physics, like quantum, mechanics, or planets or suns that are very far away. But observing humans and making theories about humans that make sense is tricky in its own way, right? And so social science is kind of complicated and tricky in its own sense. And so we looked at the different methods, that scientists use, right? Generally difference between qualitative and quantitative. But we looked at interviews, ethnographies, case studies, surveys, comparative historical analysis or research, content analysis, experiments, conversation analysis, and focus groups, right? So you can see, there's a lot of different methods to get at observing people. And it's not as if one method is correct and another wrong. Really, you just want to pick the right method for your question, right? You want to kind of, once you got your question down, then you got to try to figure out the best way to get at that question, to answer it, to develop a theory, to test it with a hypothesis. And so that's really been our, the outline of our class, right? These three parts. So in the final end, I wanted to return to something that I talked about in the very first class. That was the power of social science research. And, what does social science research do for us? Right? And I think if you remember, I said, everybody has opinions about the world. Everybody has beliefs, right? Believe this, believe that. What social science research allows us to do is to test these beliefs, to see whether our feelings and our ideas about the world and about humans and about people is correct. Right? It allows us in some sense to step outside of our own personal experience and to get an objective view, right? To see, humans disagree, people disagree about what the world is like, what society is like. And social science research allows us to some degree, allows us to settle that disagreement. Allows us to say, okay, well, I believe this, you believe that, but this is what the research says. Right? We don't have to, it's not going to be the final end to the argument, between citizens in a country, but it will help us, try to talk about it, try to figure out these issues. So this leads me to, I guess, the very last, I wanted to add one thing to this power of social science research. I've been thinking about it, particularly with, recent events. And what I would say is that another power or another ability of social science research and this class that you've just taken is it allows us to judge the information that is put forward in front of us. Hopefully some of this class, the idea is that makes you more critically informed or critically aware of what you see in the news, right? If you see an article or you see a piece of news that says, this is what happened, or this is what the world is like now, hopefully this class can let you ask questions like, well, is this just a correlation? Is this, is this correlation, or is there actually causation happening here? What's the methods they used? How big is their sample? Right? Allows you to question, gives you the tools to question the news that you see in front of you, to not just accept it, right? And so I think lastly, that's an important part of all of this, right? I think especially now, in this era of our political time, we want an informed citizenry, right? We want people to have the facts, and we want people to some degree to agree on what the facts are, right? And I think it's, allowing people to have research, to be informed about what makes a good argument, what counts as data, how do you discover, improve something about people and society. I think that's something that our society, desperately needs. We need our citizenry to be better informed and more informed. And so I think that, this is, social science research, along with other forms of research, is really a way to kind of get at this, to have the citizenry of America be more informed, one small piece. So that's it for the class. We have the papers to turn in and the final exam as I said, I'm going to have a review up online. If you have questions or issues or anything like that, feel free to email me, and I will do the best of my ability to resolve them. I hope everybody has a good final exam experience and a good end to the semester, and then gets a much deserved break. Okay, see you everybody.